Hey everybody, the few of you that are with me so far, Real Steel, good to see you, bud. 2 a.m. is a little late for me. We'll catch up on the replay. I've been putting together a little video with my thoughts on the R5ii, the R5C2. So interested to hear your thoughts. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that. And who else we got here so far? We have King Croc. I know you're keeping your V-Raptor X content quiet for now. No, I'm going the other direction, bud. and that's something we'll talk about too. And then looks like we've got Scotty V. I'm doing great, Scotty. How you doing, man? You know, I've wondered, Scotty, what type of work do you do? I know that you're a Canon shooter, and I know that because you seem to comment on a lot of the Canon things, but I've never, let's see. Yep, Canon all day. I think you were saying that as I was talking. So, thanks for coming by, everybody. I want to try to do this more regularly. Just go ahead and stream like this. Now, I'm using a different setup today, so let's talk about that first. And tell me if it looks and it sounds okay. So what I'm using right now, and you'll have to excuse my voice, I had a late night last night. What I'm using right now is the Fuji XH2S. And this is a camera that I got in part of a trade deal that I made for the Komodo X. So I got rid of the Komodo X recently, got the XH2S and a grip of lenses, to make the value of the KX. And I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with all the lenses and such yet, because I got a couple G Master zooms. I haven't had a Sony body for at least a year, so I got a couple G Master zooms, a couple nice G Master zooms. A couple Fuji lenses, the Fuji body, a Canon zoom, a Sigma zoom, all of this to kind of try to even the values on the KX. So I thought this might be a good thing for the Fuji to do. So far, it's pretty cool. Now, the autofocus sucks on this camera. So that's the thing, man. If you're used to coming from Sony and from Canon, where the autofocus on both of those systems are really good, the Fuji autofocus is not good. So, for instance, let's see if I can get it to do it. So, I'm looking up at my monitor here, and I've got peaking on it, so I can see that I'm in focus right now. And even though I have face and eye tracking on this, and it even goes so far as to say which eye it wants to track. If I do something like this, it will focus on my hands. And I can see that it's focusing on my hands right now. Even though my face is still clearly visible, my eye is clearly visible. Let's help it out a little bit. Yeah. And it's still going to my hands because my hands, I guess, are now the closest thing to the camera. I mean, the only way I can really tell too is because of the peaking. It's quickly, at least, going between my hands and my face. So the Fuji autofocus just isn't great. And so, like, what does that mean for me? It means if I'm doing something like a talking head like this, I either am going to lock it off if I'm using this camera, the XH2S. And it's a really neat camera, like other than that, and we'll get into that if you want to. It means I'm either going to lock it off or I'm going to have to instruct whoever is speaking not to do this because it's just going to focus on your hands if you do that instead of your face. And this might be user error. I mean, I'm not discounting that. I mean, it's a very new system. This is one of the first times I'm using the thing. It's a very new system to me. But I've tried it a few different ways. I've tried the tracking a few different ways. I've tried the area that it's pulling focus from and then supposedly recognizing faces from within that area. I've tried that a few different ways. And I just don't think it's super reliable. So, I mean, that's kind of a bummer because it's a cool camera otherwise. So, let's see if we have any other... Okay, Scotty. I do auto, commercial, retail, and business promo, and I shoot a show for Boss Rutan, UFC Hall of Famer, for fun, too. That's pretty cool. So what is he doing these days? Is he, I know the name. I think I can picture him. He's one of the OG guys, I think. Yeah, maybe not that OG. Not as OG as, like, Tank Abbott and Hoist Gracie and all those guys, Dan Severn, but, like, pretty OG, right? Boss Rutan. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, though, and thanks for joining me, the 6, 7 of you that are on right now, is we are in a period right now where there are a lot of cameras going to be coming forth. And this is dovetailing at an odd... Keep my hands down. The thing will focus on my hands, not my face. Go like this. And Fuji. This is dovetailing at a point where I'm actually buying less gear now. And there's a couple reasons for that. So a few reasons for that, actually. One of the reasons I'm buying less gear is because I'm becoming more pragmatic about what I need to work with. And a pretty good example of that is my latest Komodo X for Fuji XH2S, plus a pile of other things, type of deal. And the reason that I did that more than any other is because I wanted to get out of the KX. And the reason I wanted to get out of the KX after having it for, I don't know, less than a year. I don't think it's even been out for a year. And it's not my first RED camera. It's my third RED camera, so I've been shooting RED for years and years. I wanted to get out of the KX because it was sitting around. And it's not because I didn't like the camera, but because I did like the camera that I wanted to get out of it. Because I did like the camera and because it was sitting around, that just kills me. I want my tools. These are tools for me. I want my tools to be working for me. And so that's the reason I wanted to get out of the KX. Now, why did I get out of the KX by choosing to trade it versus selling it? That really is just a function of the value of the KX. And so when you have gear that's that expensive, there's only a few ways that you can get rid of it, right? You can try to do the Craigslist dude game, you know, in the Facebook marketplace and have people show up and then try to renegotiate when they get there, if they get there, you know, try to jack you or all the scams, you know. I mean, you can play that game. I don't want to play that game. I'm too busy these days to play that game. Or you can do the eBay route, right? And so you're trying to sling photo gear on eBay. Now, I'm somebody who used eBay a lot, like about a decade ago, when I was very into audio recording and, you know, and mixing and stuff like that. You know, buying and selling and preamps and mics and things like that. And eBay in that 10 years since then or so, 10, 15 years since then, has just gotten to be a nightmare. I mean, it has, now you have to navigate almost as many scams with eBay. There isn't an overarching level of trust and honesty on the platform, I think, like there once was. And when you do have problems, which are more likely because of that lack of honesty these days, there's fewer and fewer avenues of recourse available on eBay as well. PayPal and such, which used to be really good about mediating disputes, apps is awful these days. I mean, I had, and maybe I'll make a video once about how eBay stole a $2,000, well, it wasn't $2,000 because I sold it used, a $1,200 Sony A7 III camera from me. True story. And maybe I'll make a video on it sometime. So my point is, and then the other way that you can get rid of a camera like a KX is to sell it to one of the gear dealers, right? Like the B&H, the KEH, the Adoramos, one of those. And you're going to take it in the shorts like that. So you're going to take it in the shorts like that. You're going to take it in the shorts on eBay because aside from all those problems that I said with it, it also has gotten very expensive. And they, I think, even withhold money for taxation and maybe just like give it right to the IRS or something. Like, I mean, it's crazy, right? And it's like, no, you're just, all I'm hiring you to do, eBay, is to be a broker, right? Is to find me a buyer and I'm the seller, and then you put us together and you take your commission because of it. That's it. You know, but they try to be more than that these days. So I traded it to a friend of mine for all of this gear because it is easier to sell these smaller pieces of gear than it is to sell something like a Komodo X. A Sony G Master lens, right, like the 60 and 35 GM or the 24 to 70 GM2, those are super easy things to sell locally. You know, you put it on Facebook Marketplace, you haggle just a little bit, but you're going to get it. It's, you know, it's like listing an iPhone. You know, it's like you list, anybody who's ever listed an iPhone for sale locally knows that it doesn't even last the day. Right? So that's really it. Let's see where I am with the comments here. I see more of you here. So speak up. Tell us who you are here. That Fuji focus would make me nuts. Face only with a Canon rocks. It does. Head detect too. Awesome. Yeah. And Sony has that too now on some of their Cinecams, like the FX6 and above. I think does a face only as well, just like the Canon does. So for those of you who don't know what Scotty's talking about on Canon Cinecams, and so the mirrorless cameras don't do it. See, and this is like totally Canon too. Canon does stuff like this, right? It doesn't matter the price point of the camera. It matters what they call the camera, whether it does this or not. So for instance, the, what is it now, $3,500 R5ii, Canon calls a cinema camera. And it has a focus mode on that cinema camera called face only. And so that's different than a face priority, like a lot of these mirrorless cameras do. Face only will detect a face, will focus on that face, and if it does not see a face, it stops, right? So it just holds focus wherever it last saw a face. And so only Canon cinema cameras and Sony cinema cameras that I know of do this, right? The mirrorless cameras have all kinds of different ways of focusing. Some of that is face priority, so it will prioritize a face, but then if it loses a face, it's going to jump, right? It's going to jump to the background, it's going to jump to whatever else, something else it thinks is a face, like, you know, so with the Canon and the Sony, not only will it stay on a face, but you can prioritize which face on some of them that it does. And it makes it a really, really solid, reliable, robust tool for especially this kind of thing, right? For talking head type of footage. Whereas what Scotty's talking about, and for those of you who are just joining in, I'm shooting on the Fuji XH2S right now, and the focus is awful. And so I can tell that I'm in focus right now. I'm looking up at my monitor up here because I have peaking on it, and I see my beard is green. And it's on face. It's on face detection, and it's also on eye detection. So it's going to take the eyes from the face. But if I do something like this, it goes to my hands. Even though it can still clearly see my face, it can clearly see my eyes, right? And I'll help it out. I'll take off the hat, I'll take off the glasses, and yep, I think it's still going to my hands because my hands are in front of my face. And it's like, well, why did I tell you face then? If you're just gonna focus on whatever the first thing is between me and the camera anyway. So, you know, nobody has any fantasy that Fuji doesn't have as good of an autofocus system. But the question is, can you use this for professional work? You can. You can use any of these things for professional work. You just have to realize the bounds of it, you know. So I would probably lock it off for professional work because it's hard to tell somebody when they're talking not to do this and not to use their hands. People do that when they talk. So... all right, so I was saying about the face only AF. Canon doesn't seem to have any kind of bounds on the price point. So, for instance, the R3, which is my daily driver, it's around here somewhere, right here. The R3, which is my daily driver. Hey, you know what? This is handy though. I know that it'll focus on it now, not my face. See, I'm already using it to my advantage. So the R3 is a much more expensive camera than the R5C, but it doesn't have that, you know, because it doesn't have the cinema operating system. The C70, which you can also see, it's right back there. Let me see if I can get this right. There it is, right there. C70 has face only on it. So I would love to see that kind of thing come down to more mirrorless cameras, come down to like the XH2S and all that. I would love to see like any autofocus. Let me get this out of the way or else it'll just focus on it, right? I'd love to see other manufacturers like Fuji jump on board, you know, with that kind of thing. But I have been, you know, like I started out saying, you know, this is kind of a strange time for cameras because you don't really know what you want to buy and what you want to hold. But so that's one of the reasons why my purchasing has slowed down. Another reason why my purchasing, keep my hands out of the frame. Another reason, this is tough. I should just lock the thing off and be done with it. Another reason my purchasing has slowed down is because, now Josh Satin, I don't know if you're here, Josh, he made a video a few months ago about how camera tech has largely, I don't want to say plateaued, I don't know if he said plateaued either, but he basically just pointed out that a lot of the most powerful cameras that we're using, like the R3 and the C70 and, you know, etc., are a couple or a few years old now. And that resonates with me because there hasn't been anything in the past at least couple years that really gets me excited to go out and buy it. The KX was the only thing that was like that, and now I'm getting rid of it because I didn't use it as often, because I don't need it. You know, it's a lot of money tied up into a system that I don't use. It's beautiful. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. It's kind of like selling a 2-year-old, you know, where like, you know, it's really annoying most of the time, but if somebody tried to take it from you, like, you'd kill them, right? I mean, the RED cameras are kind of like that. It's hard to get rid of them because nothing looks as good as it does. You know, nothing looks as good as it does, and nothing has that robustness of that 16-bit codec and the IPP2 engine. And it's like, it takes color so, I mean, 16-bit, it's like a color explosion, and it takes color so well, you know, and that's one of the things, like just the robustness of the file. Any of these other cameras are nothing like a RED camera is. So that was a tough decision, but it wasn't making me money, so it had to go. And I'm going to press into service a lot of this other stuff that I got for it, and then the other things that I'm not going to press, like this weird, I got a weird lens out of this. I got a Sigma 24 to 35 f2. Weirdest damn lens you've ever seen, right? It's big, it's heavy, it's not a big focal range, it's EF mount. You know, it's like, what am I going to do with this thing? You know, maybe I'll do this with it. I don't know. So let's see what the other comments are. So that's another reason, though, that I haven't been buying a lot of cameras lately, is there hasn't been anything that's really piqued my interest, you know. And the cameras that I have, so right now, what I currently have is the XH2S. I'll make it focus on my hand. Hi. And I have the C70, which is back there, the R3 and the R5ii. And honestly, if you can't get it done with that stable, you need a different hobby, right? So that's a pretty good place to be. And, you know, and that's because I work with these things. And so if I was just a hobbyist, I probably wouldn't have so much. But let's see. Okay, I saw that one, Scotty. And let's see what else you got here. OG and Pride and Pan. Oh, okay. Yeah, oh, and he was in Pride. Okay. I liked Pride. I liked the old school Prides because of the Japanese audience. And I know that sounds kind of dumb, but like the Japanese audience is just so much more respectful, like, of the fighters, you know, than the American audience, which got a bit rowdier. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying I liked Pride because it was very much a disconnect from American fighting audiences. So I know that might be a dumb reason to like it, but I remember enjoying it for that. Fuji Focus would make me nuts. It's only with Canon hand detect too. Awesome, yeah. And where's the mini LF? Yeah, you know, I would never have. You know, and here's the other thing about it. So that actually brings up a good point, King Kruk. Is the other thing is, I am, like I'd said, trying to be a lot more pragmatic about the gear that I buy. And part of that is just recognizing, because these are tools to me, what it is that people are ordering, right? What kind of jobs that I'm currently doing. And the vast majority of work that I do is stills work, right? It's real estate photography, real estate stills work. I do it from the ground, I do it from the air, but that is 90% of what I do. And I recently uploaded a video that showed, it was kind of like a shadow video. Let me show you what a day in the life of a real estate photographer is. And it's coming around, and I was rolling some completed images and stuff. And so you can look up and take a look at that. And one of the comments that was on that video I thought was a very astute comment. The guy says, who was that? I think it might have been you, Real Steel, that said that, but I'm not sure. Somebody said, well, you know, how often are you having clients order video? And the answer is not that often. Not often enough to keep a KX waiting in the wings for that couple jobs a month, few jobs a month, where not only is video being ordered, but the home that it's being ordered on is of a level that I feel like capturing it with a RED camera is the best way to go. Because even the real estate videos that I do a lot of the time, like, why would I take a KX to a little dump house on the wrong side of town where there's no views out of it? You know, you don't want to see out the windows on some of those things, right? Because you see trash cans, cars on yards, there's no view to capture. It's a little tract home box. I don't need to bring the KX out on a job like that. You know, I could do a job like that video with, honestly, with whatever I'm shooting stills on. You know, I'll just throw the R3 into video mode and go for it, right? I still like having dedicated video tools, though. And so I still like having a camera that I can keep set up as a video camera that flies on a gimbal that I can just go and grab like that. Because that way I don't have to do anything else from the photo settings and the photo gear. Like, I don't have to take the flash trigger out of it. I don't have to, you know, deal anything with levels or with mounting hardware or focus motors or anything like that, right? I can keep a camera set up like that I just throw on a gimbal and go for it. And so I didn't need the KX. I don't need any video camera to that level just because I'm not doing video work to that level. So where does that leave me going forward? Because I did want to get into more video production, typically to fill the void in the region, fill the void in the times that real estate photography is slower. So the winter, mostly the winter, right? The fall and the winter months. I want to do more small business branding type of stuff. And I do this, especially in those times, just not a lot of it. And I want to do more of it. But if a RED camera is going to be maybe a bit, I hate the word overkill. I think I might have made a video about how much I hate the word overkill, but a RED camera is a bit too much of a thing, I'll say, because that's the thing. Whether it's overkill or not, it's just a process too. You know, it's a more cumbersome system to use than a lot of these mirrorless-based systems. Where does that leave me? Maybe the Pixis? I know that camera's gotten a lot of hate, but maybe. All my realtors wants this video. That's awesome. You know, I think the other part of this for me too, Paul, is I don't charge enough for my video. And that's not saying I'm not losing my shorts. I'm making money on them and stuff, but I don't charge enough for my video, for my real estate videos. And so if I've got a $10,000 KX, well, I mean, 10,000 is the brain, right? Like, how much money did I have into that thing with all the bits and bobs? Like, probably 12,000, 12,500, somewhere around there. If I've got 10,000 plus of KX, unless I can charge $1,500, $2,000 a job, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense for me to have that. What's my break-even horizon on a system like that expensive? So now there are the intangibles too, right? There are the things about a system like a RED system where it's like, you know what, there are hobbyists out there with RED systems just because they enjoy using the thing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a trophy camera. And it's a trophy camera for some people. For me, it'll probably be a medium format because that's mostly what I do is stills. And I've got 3 kids and I don't take enough photos of them, my wife says. So for my trophy camera, I'm looking either at the Hasselblad X2D, the Fuji 100 GFX 102, or next week, allegedly, there's supposed to be the Fuji GFX 100S Mark II that is going to be coming, that is going to be announced. Right now, snapshot in time, I would get the Hasselblad, and a lot of that is because of the leaf shutters and the lenses and the flash sync abilities because of that and such. So I would get the Hasselblad right now if I were to get one, and I might. I might actually do that. Just as like a trophy camera, you know, something to photograph the kids, something just to carry with me and be creative with. And I can also use it on those higher end jobs. And because I'm doing stills day in and day out, if I use it day in and day out, it's going to pay itself off. And look, now I have a Hasselblad, right? Yeah, I'm still new to it. I'm trying to figure out what to charge. that's a tough thing, man. Like, you know, nobody can really tell you what to charge on services. So I would say one piece of advice, I think you got to be careful with this though, okay? You can get on the Facebook groups that are real estate photography, real estate videography, and see some amazing work on there, and interact with very experienced people with real estate video. I think you're talking about, maybe you're not talking about real estate video. Yeah, all realtor ones, but you are talking about real estate video. But you got to keep in mind with those groups, they are very, very heavily weighted toward people who are commercial first, right? So it's not people who are doing this. I mean, a lot of them, I'm convinced, have no idea how to run a camera or any of this kind of gear beyond what they need to know to make money. I have always kind of approached it from a different perspective, in that my perspective is, if I enjoy the people I'm around and I enjoy the work that I'm doing, the money is a byproduct of that, and it will come, and it does. And not only that, but because I enjoy the people I'm around and because they enjoy me, they refer me to other people. So, you know, it's different, you know, it's a different way of thinking about it. It has a lot to depend on, like, how you define success and everything too. You know, if the way you define success is, I'm going to maximize every single time I take this camera out, I'm going to maximize its value, I'm going to maximize this and that and everything, that's fine, but, you know, you're just going to be chasing it all the time. However, if you define success where, you know, most people who are creative never figure out a way to make a living being creative. However, here I am making a great living being creative, and I'm enjoying the people that I'm around. If that's success to you, I think that's an easier bar to hit, you know, and it's a more satisfying bar to hit, I think. I wouldn't know about the other one just because I've never approached it like that. But yeah, you can get on the Facebook groups. They'll give you all kinds of advice, brother. You know, I mean, you know, some of these groups are huge, right? Like tens of thousands of people in them that are all doing that kind of work. And so if you say, hey, what should I charge for this? You're going to get 100 different answers. You know, some of them might be cool. Most of them are, you know, some of them are going to be dick answers. So for medium format, if you go Hasselblad, then you'll have lenses for when you inevitably upgrade to 17K Blackmagic camera. You know, you've said that once before about is it going to have a? I don't think it's going to have a Hasselblad mount. So I think that's kind of putting the cart before the horse there, because we don't know what kind of mount that camera is going to have, and the Hasselblad mount and the flange distance of it may be different. But I get what you're saying though. Yeah, I won't. The 17K Blackmagic, that's not for me, because I think even like the 12K full frame one that they're doing is over 10,000. You know, I don't want to spend over 10,000 on cameras again. I've done it twice, both on RED cameras. The first one was the DSM-C2 Dragon X. I got it for 20,000 on sale. It was like ready to shoot kit, you know, it comes with a lens and the lens mount and the batteries and all that stuff. 20 grand, you know, is what that camera cost when I bought it, however many years ago that was. So the cameras that powerful have gone down in price a lot, you know, so that's good, because you can buy an OG Komodo brand new for, what are they, like 5 or 6 grand or something like that. So they have come down a lot, but because they have come down a lot, I see very little sense in purchasing one that's like over 10 grand. I probably will never do that again. So we'll see. You know, and another part of that too, King Kruk, is I'm better at what I do now than I was then. And so, you know, when you're starting out, or I shouldn't say starting out, because I wasn't starting out, but with lesser experience of where you end up attaining in this business and working with cameras, you are more gear focused, you know, during those formative type of periods and years and such. You're more gear focused. And then as you get more experience under your belt, you learn more about lighting, you learn more about, about everything having to do with this. You start, your skills start to transcend the gear that you're using. Now, that doesn't mean that gear doesn't matter, because gear absolutely matters. And the time that it matters the most is in those challenging conditions, when you're starting to have to push and pull the image and whatever, or, that's when gear really does start to matter. But you start to realize those situations aren't as sticky as you thought they were. And when you've solved problems like 100 different ways, then the gear starts to matter a little bit less to you, I think. For drone and video walkthrough, I've been charging around 400, for which my area I think is good. Yeah, that's about what I charge too for like a smaller one. Like I have shot the bigger homes where it's gone up pretty significantly from there. But that's about what I charge for the smaller ones too, is about that. And I don't know, like if that's working for you, that's cool. If you go and post that on those real estate videography Facebook groups like I'm talking about, you're going to get a split opinion on that. You're going to have people saying like, oh man, I can only charge $250 where I'm at. And then you'll have people saying like, I don't leave the house for less than like $1,200. So it's just, does it work for you, brother? There's no right answer to this, unfortunately. Mike likes tacos. Hello. Brian likes tacos too. I remember saying that before to you, that Brian likes tacos too. Very good point. Thank you. I don't know which one, but okay. Yep, I think that's probably on the the posting it on the Facebook groups kind of thing. So, what kind of cameras are you guys? Are you looking forward to the Canon R5 Mark II, the Canon R1, the Fuji GFX 100S2? I hate it when they do these things, Just call the thing Steve or something. Like, just stop. They did it right with Pixis. Blackmagic did. So, and Blackmagic's one of the most egregious offenders of this anyway, with their BMCC-PC, things. Like, dude, just call it something. They did. They called it Pixis. So, let's see, the Canon. So I'm in the Canon system now, mostly. All the way, except for Fuji, which focuses on my hand high instead of my face, even though I told it to do my face. The R5 Mark II, man, gosh, this is a tough one. And the reason this is a tough one is because for what I do on the daily, the R3 is the right tool for that. And I avoided the R3 for a long time because I could not reconcile its, at the time, $6,000 price point with its resolution of only 24 megapixel. But I believe, first off, the R3 is the most detailed 24 megapixel camera that I've ever had, and I've had a few of them. I think a lot of that has to do with the RF lenses, and the files are really light. The R3 is far and away more stable than the R5 variant cameras. And by that I mean, I don't mean stable as far as, the camera booting up and stuff. I mean stable as far as its wireless connection, right? So I wirelessly tether when I'm shooting composites to an iPad, and I'm using the Canon app, right? The Canon Connect, I think it's called Connect, using the Canon app to do that. And the R3 is just rock steady. It sees the device. I can go really far. The A1 is like this too. The Sony A1 is a lot better than any other Sony camera as far as it, because these are made for like professional workflows where there are people using these cameras like on the sidelines of sporting events and things like that. And so one of the ways that these flagship cameras, these kind of sports oriented, fast action type of cameras are better is the I/O, right? Is the communications, is the throughput of data. Like, they're just better like that. And even though I am not shooting anything fast moving because houses don't move that fast, the advantage to that is you can tether to a device when you're doing the work that I am doing with the flash ambient and have it be steady all over the house. Whereas some of the other lesser cameras like the R5, the R5 II, those are still pretty good. Don't get me wrong, but you can get a couple walls between you and the camera and it'll go out. So if I want to, let's say I've got the camera right here, I want to put light over there, you know, with a strobe. With the R5, I know there's only a certain amount of distance I can get before I start having to worry about connection issues. With the R3, I know I can go. It's going to work. You know, then I can get a flash pop over there, right? So I lost my train of thought here. Let's see. Mike likes tacos. Brian likes tacos. Hey, back at you, bud. Brian likes tacos a lot, actually. See, Exhibit A. King Kruk, are there any lenses you're looking forward to? Not really. So I've got not really. I'm pretty squared away on lenses. Other than, you know, if I do get into a different system, if I do get into like a Hasselblad, like medium format type of system, then, you know, there's a whole new crop of lenses now that I get to nerd out on and figure out what they're all about and such. And I'm kind of doing that with the Fuji at the time right now because it's my first time trying a Fuji camera. You know, everything else I've got is Canon RF mount. So the lens that's shooting me right now is the 33 1.4, and I like it. I mean, it's sharp, fast. You know, it focuses on my hand when I do this really nicely. I'm not going to leave that part alone because I think that's ridiculous. But no, I'm pretty squared away. I mean, I have so much nice glass like for Canon RF. I really do. So I've got everything from 12 millimeter to 200 millimeter, and many of those focal lengths, several options of I have. And so, you know, I don't know. I don't know what that lens would be to make me excited about a new one. Shoot with two C70s and R5C. Yeah, I'm really only interested in staying brand loyal. The new stuff would have to be absolutely amazing to buy another camera. I'm happy full frame box style maybe. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of us are. Because, you know, two C70s and an R5C, what can't you get done with that? It's gotten to the point where we have to keep in mind that most media is being consumed on a cell phone. And the media that's not being consumed on a cell phone is being consumed on a tablet. Sometimes on TVs, but like we're already at 4K being a standard. It is the standard for delivery, I would say, these days. I wouldn't have said that a couple years ago. I'd say it's still 1080, but I think 4K is the standard delivery now. But we have small cameras that shoot 6K, 8K. There are advantages to that, obviously, in capturing those resolutions. You can descale noise. If you're descaling to a 4K delivery, there's croppability involved. I mean, there are advantages to capturing higher resolution, but is it needed to do commercial work? You know, who are you trying to impress? Are you doing heavy VFX on the things? You know, it's like that's like cinema camera territory. You know, and cinema cameras have better image quality because, first reason, because they're so much more expensive. And I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it's true. Because they're so much more expensive, they can get bigger and better processing in it, bigger and better cooling in it. The exotic sensors, say like the RED cameras have, because they are very exotic, right? They run many fewer of those sensors in a product run than, say, like the Sonys and the Canons of the world, which means their development cost needs to be amortized over fewer cameras. You know, so because these cameras are more expensive, because they're justifiably more expensive, they are going to have better image quality, sure. But are the R3s of the world, the R5Cs, the C70s, are they good enough for the types of client work that we're doing and the way that the images are being consumed? Yup. So what would a new camera offer that those ones don't? That's a real tough question to answer, man. Like, it really is. It's kind of like how, and then I'll get on. I see some more comments down there. It's kind of like how when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, especially in the 90s, there was a big industry around 12-volt car audio, right? You could go down to Circuit City at the time, the Good Guys, for those of you who remember Good Guys. Best Buy, I think, was around. But those other two were, right? Circuit City, Good Guys, some of those. And they had a whole section of the store. Kind of like how you'd find the TV section now. Like, they had a whole section of the store for 12-volt car audio. And why is that? It's because the cars in the 80s and 90s were junk. And the factory systems in those cars were equally as junk. You know, they're like little paper cone speakers with like 5 watts going to them kind of thing, you know, out of a radio that's like basically just stamped out of a piece of sheet metal. It was just junk. There were not separate amplifiers. There were not subwoofers. There was no, you know, time alignment tuning going on or anything like that. But, you know, now if you fast forward, right, 30 years or so, all of those things, like, my pickup truck that I just bought, it's got like 16 speakers in it. And it's got 2 amps, I think, one of them for the sub. And it sounds like, I mean, it doesn't sound as good as what you're going to be able to cobble together if you go hang out at Crutchfield or whatever and then get all the best. Sure, it's not going to sound that good, but it sounds good enough that people no longer go to Circuit City and to Good Guys for the 12-volt stuff. Right, and so those are just, they're not around anymore. You know, you go to Best Buy now, and their car audio section is like one little part of an aisle, and then you got the whole rest of the store that mostly sells like cell phone cases and stuff these days, right? So I think cameras are a lot like that. You know, what can you do now with very pedestrian things? And the answer is a lot, you know. So I'm not sure that cinema cameras, they're going to get more and more niche, I think, as time goes. Those types of cameras are. You're going to have more and more people like me who used to have cinema cameras. I've had 3 RED cameras, and I no longer have a RED camera, and so far I'm not missing it, you know, because the small cameras I have, they'll get the job done. They're pretty powerful. I have a shoot coming up for the same realtor, 3 houses next to each other, and a builder's showcase. Those are great. You know, I did one of those. There was 2 builder homes right next to each other where they wanted everything on both of them. They wanted everything from stills, video, Matterport 3D, aerials, all that. And they were being completed right around the same time, and I charged, I want to say, like $2,500 for that, because they were both big too. You know, they're both big. They're both, you know. So builders I treat kind of more like, those are commercial jobs, you know. Those are more like architecture and design kind of jobs and everything. Now, the difference is you're delivering more than like an architecture jobs. You're delivering more like a real estate type of a package, but this is a spec home for them, right? They're going to be showcasing this. It's going to take me longer to capture it. I'm going to bring in things like RED cameras, right, for houses like that. So I think I charged about $2,500 for that. And it was 2 of them, like right next to each other that I did that. I use the R3 and love it. I do too. R3, it's my workhorse. You know, like I say this often, I thought it was going to, I think the R3 was going to be the R1. I do. I think it was going to be the R1. I think Sony beat Canon to the punch by releasing the A1. The A1 bested what was going to be the R1, ended up being the R3 in a lot of ways. And so Canon kind of walked it back. Like, yeah, you know, let's put a 3 on the thing. And that other thing we're talking about, we're going to develop that into one. And now that thing allegedly is going to come at some point. And that's kind of exciting, right? Jordan Shipley, how you doing, bud? I'm most looking forward to the Lumix S1H Mark II whenever that comes. I have so little experience with Lumix cameras. I have always looked at them as an off-brand. Same with Fuji. Even though the heritage may be whatever it is, and you know, whatever, but it's, you know, they have their weird L mount and you know, and all this. I mean, all cameras have a look, right? And I think the more experienced all of us get with whatever we do, and especially the more experienced we get with a lot of different cameras and different ecosystems, we start to see that look. Canon cameras have a look. Sony cameras have a look. Fuji cameras have a look. RED cameras have a look. Lumix cameras have a look. To me, the look of a Lumix camera is kind of polarized. And I mean that like in a technical sense, right? Like when you put a polarizer on a lens and you're at the angle to the sun where it is the strongest type of polarization, that's kind of what a Lumix camera looks like to me. Is speaking of like the video image, like specifically from Lumix cameras, it looks kind of like warm and kind of like orangey and saturated, if that makes sense. And of course, this is subtle, you know, and people will always point out like, oh, if you know how to grade, and say, well, I'm not talking about that though. I'm talking about what you get out of the camera, and all cameras have a look. You know, all cameras look a little bit different. The R5ii, for example, I think looks gray. It just looks gray to me. It looks gray compared to a lot of other cameras, really. You know, it just has like kind of that, like maybe not a whole lot of color information there. You can put color back into it and you can boost color, but it just isn't, it isn't punchy like a RED camera is, you know. With Sony cameras, I can't help but see the smearing now with Sony cameras. So like the A7S series cameras, so like I had an A7S III that I used, and I'm not throwing any shade here. Like I've made a pile of money with the A7S III. I've done more real estate videos with that camera than any other one, hundreds. But I can't unsee the in-camera noise reduction, even at base ISO, which is 640 on that camera. It just looks smeary. You know, it looks kind of plasticky a little bit. And, you know, people will be, oh, watch the hands, or it'll focus on the hands. So people, where is my point of no return on the hands? There it is. Yeah, there's got to be a different solution to that. But, yeah, so with the A7S III, it's like, you know, people like to say, oh, well, the Sonys, they're low light beasts because you've got that second base ISO at, you know, 12,800. And okay, look, first off, I don't know what you're shooting, but if you're at 12,800, there's a problem. You know, so like, you know, you need to figure out some other way to skin that cat, you know, if you're doing that. Secondly, it's not that clean. I mean, the noise is not there, sure. Okay, but it is getting hammered. It is getting so hammered with noise reduction, those cameras, when they go to that 12,800 second base, that there's even a color shift, you know? So don't believe me? You have one? Try it out. You'll see. So the whole color temperature shifts warmer when it goes up there, like high ISO. Right, so yeah, the only thing that's different is, I mean, the sensor may be, you know, gaining itself a little bit differently, sure, but it's getting hammered with noise reduction. And the Sony camera, that family of cameras, I can almost say Sony cameras because they put that sensor in everything these days. So the A7S III variant cameras, so that, the FX3, ZVE1, FX6, there's a PTZ one, there's, gosh, is there like at least one other now? So that sensor, those variant of cameras, are absolute trash between those two native ISOs. Like, you want to stay at 640 or at 12,800. And that doesn't give you a lot of option to operate in the world that most video shooters operate. You know, and so when you get cameras like the R5C, for instance, where its two bases are 800 and 3200, that is a much, much more usable place to be, 3200, than 12,800. And not only that, but the R5C, because the image is more detailed, right? it's downscaling from a 45 megapixel sensor to get that 4K read when you're doing like the 4K XFAVC. There's a lot less noise natively in that image anyway. Now, if you have that second base ISO where it's cleaning up at 3200, that is just a better camera to use for that mid ISO range than the Sony's in any variant. I know that was a bit of a rant, and I'm sorry. So, but we're moving on. L mount alliance, yeah. So, you know, I can't throw too much shade at the L mount because I do think the Blackmagic Pixis looks maybe interesting enough for me to buy. Maybe interesting enough for me to buy two of them, actually. And if I did, they would be L mount ones, you know, because the L mount is the mirrorless mount, and L mount itself obviously has a lot of native lenses, and a lot of them are good. A lot of them are third-party lenses, you know, like Sigma makes a lot of L mount lenses, and there are L mount cine lenses out there and everything. But then, you know, the beauty of it is it's just like the other mirrorless mounts, like Canon RF, Sony E. You know, these are great mounts because they adapt to anything. Micro Four Thirds is like that too. Micro Four Thirds is a great mount because it adapts to anything, you know, and it speed boosts anything and whatnot. So I might get the Pixis, which is an L mount camera, because it compared to other Blackmagic cameras, right? It's the only bad thing about the Pixis. I'm going to say two things. There's two things that are bad about the Pixis where they could have done better. One is they could have made that screen articulate. They could have made the screen articulate, or they could have put another secondary screen on it, or just something, you know, so you can see a screen on the thing, so you don't have to rig a screen. And what they essentially have done by not doing that is make it so you cannot run that camera, which is I mean, it's not tiny. It's like FX6 size or so. You can't run it on a gimbal, really, without figuring out the screen thing. Or you're going to be, you know, walking around like this with the thing. So they could have done that better. And I think another big thing they could have done better with that camera is obviously the frame rates. So I think it's full sensor read at, I know people like to talk about the rolling shutter and stuff. I've had an OG 6K, you know, and it had terrible rolling shutter, and it wasn't really a thing, you know, because like when I'm shooting real estate, like I'm moving like a ninja anyway, and the house ain't moving, you know. It's so, you know, just be mindful of that. Be mindful during your pans and stuff to, you know, time them out and make them slow and everything. But the bigger one is, you know, the cap on frame rate. So if it had faster frame rates and it had a screen that wasn't fixed on the side of it, then I think that would be more usable to more people. Because of that, I might get the 6K full frame, which is also L mount. So why would I be looking at those cameras when I just got rid of the KX? Well, because they're much, much cheaper. They're much, much cheaper, and here's the thing, right? There was a period of time where I had an OG Pocket 6K and an OG Komodo at the same time. And I'm not trying to pull wool over anybody's eyes, trying to suggest even for a second that a Blackmagic anything is on balance a better camera than a RED anything, because it isn't. But for a fraction of the cost, the Blackmagic cameras, the Blackmagic anythings, get dangerously close to how powerful a RED camera is. And like I was saying before, when you get to the point where you've been doing it for a while and your skills now transcend a little bit more the gear that you have, you know, versus otherwise, the Blackmagic camera, you can get it done with. And you've got a whole lot less money into the system. So that's maybe a video for another day. Pixis looks pretty cool. I'd choose a DSMC1 Dragon over it, though. I loved my DSM-C2 Dragon X. You know, that's out of all the cameras I think that I've ever had that I've gotten rid of, that's the one that I kind of miss the most. And it's hard to articulate why. It kind of goes back to like we were saying about how cameras all have a look. Like that Dragon sensor has a look that is not approximated by the Komodo 6K cameras. Komodo 6K cameras have their own look. You know, it's global shutter and it's smaller. You know, the Dragon sensor is a little bit bigger. The Dragon 6K is a little bit bigger than the Komodo 6K. It's taller. So, and it just has a look. It has like a grain. It has like, ugh. You know, I wish I hadn't sold that one. I love Dragon sensors, man. I don't like the side screen. Yeah, it was a strange decision, you know. And people will say, "Oh, well, you know, the Red Raptor's got it." Yeah, but the Red Raptor is kind of meant for, you know, big productions. You're gonna have many monitors, right? You're gonna have the one the camera operators using, you're gonna have the one the focus puller's using, you're gonna have a director one and everything. Like, I don't think that's what the Pixis is made to be. Like, it's not made to be a full-on production camera. They've got their Ursas for that, you know, and so make the Pixis easier to use. You know, don't put just one screen stuck on the side. Just put a hinge on it, man. You know, Blackmagic has an image thing. It's real. It's nice. The functions are the downsides. I agree about the image. You know, and that's the thing with Blackmagic is they are such a disruptor in that I don't know anybody who's experienced in this for more than a few years who doesn't like Blackmagic images. You know, I mean, they're beautiful. You know, I mean, it is a really, really good image for the price that you pay. Like class leading for sure, right? Versus anything else that's out there. I'd take a Blackmagic image over a Sony, a Canon, or any of these other ones, right? For sure. The functions are the downside. I don't know. Like other than the lack of autofocus, and that could be a legitimate gripe there. You know, that they don't have autofocus. The menus are really easy. I mean, they're really simple to use. They're all, you know, they've got big bright touch screens on them. You know, I don't know what the Pixis is like, but you know, the ones that I've used have big bright touch screens on them. They're really easy to navigate. The cameras have buttons for everything, you know, so it's got button for ISO, button for white balance, you know, all that. So I don't know. I don't know how the functions would be downside. And they got decent audio on board too. You know, they've got even the latest iteration of the plastic football, of the pocket style cameras. They've got now a pair of mini XLRs on them, and the preamps sound decent. I mean, they don't sound great. You know, it's kind of like this Fuji. I'm going directly into the Fuji. So I've got my Schoeps CMC141. Uh-oh, I put my hand in front of my face. Going to the Rodecaster 2 Pro, whatever it is, the newest Rodecaster board, and then going directly into the 3.5 millimeter mic jack on the XH2S. Now the XH2S is kind of cool in that it does this better than any other mirrorless camera that I've seen actually. So the 3.5 millimeter jack, you can define it either to accept a mic level or a line level, and then beyond that, you can trim it. So that is a lot better as far as being able to gain stage with like strange voltages coming out of other devices like the Rodecaster. Rodecaster has a strange voltage coming out of it. Like it's not, like it's too hot for mic and it's too low for line. You know, so trying to get the correct, you know, levels without clipping anything on the other end can be kind of challenging on it. So, but Blackmagic their audio is pretty good. I've only used Dragon X once, definitely enjoyed the image from it. It's got like skin tones from Dragon over Monstro. I think of all of those DSM-C2 bodies, I don't have any experience with Monstro. I have experience with Dragon, I have experience with Helium, and I have experience with Gemini. I think the outlier in all of those is Gemini. It's not that it's a bad. It's not a bad camera. It's a beautiful camera. But it looks different. It looks different than like really every other RED camera. You know, the Gemini does. It's kind of I don't even know how to really articulate it. It just looks different. The Dragon and the Monstro, I think, are the standouts of that lineup. the helium was always just too noisy. And so the helium's got a lot of noise, you know, and it could be because it's an 8K sensor, but it's small. Like, it's smaller physically than the Dragon 6K sensor is. The helium 8K sensor is, right? And so it's got a really tight pixel pitch on it and such. So, but yeah, the Dragon X, dude, it's a sweet camera. I mean, it really is, you know, and not only that, but just, you know, the DSMC2 design language of it being a box and everything on it being rigidly mounted. So you don't have any cables on a DSMC2. You've got a handle with like a start-stop that's rigidly mounted onto the camera, and then pins that are, you know, on that mount do all the talking. The monitor is rigidly mounted, and the pogo, I think it's pogo pins underneath the monitor is what does all the talking. You know, and so you don't have cables. Like, even the newer RED cameras with the newer RED monitors coming from Small HD, they've got that, I forget what they call it. It's like a USB-C connector, but they call it something else. They've got a cable going there, you know, and there's still cables all over the other thing. With the DSMC2 cameras, it is a cableless system, and it is so slick, you know. So it's kind of a bummer that that they kind of got away from that design language, and I understand why. I think why is because with the DSMC3 platform stuff, they are bringing on board more third-party manufacturers of things like Small HD for the monitors, and now it's got a less exotic media. So instead of the RED mini mags, which are hugely expensive, right? They're going with CFXB cards like everybody has, you know, and so they're bringing in more and more type of third parties to do things for the platform, and that's cool. You know, but I think what that means is they're making design considerations on that too. It's not quite as elegant as the full in-house kind of stuff was. So anyway, I've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. So I'm going to try to do this more on the regular. I'm going to try to do it once a week. I haven't nailed down when that's going to be yet because this is my busy season, and it kind of just depends on the rest of my schedule. I didn't have anything to shoot today. You know, so I'm doing a bunch of editing today, but some stroke of luck, there's no shooting today. There's a lot of shooting tomorrow, a lot of shooting yesterday. so I could do it today. So thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you soon. Peace.